Good evening and welcome to this October 11, 2021 meeting of the Lake Bluff Village of Trustees. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Inkeman.
Here.
Trustee Brienne.
Here.
Trustee Fisher.
Here.
Trustee Markey.
Here.
Trustee Rappin.
Here.
Trustee Ryder.
Here.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First, we have a couple of awards and proclamation. Our first proclamation is a proclamation designating the month of October 2021 as Dysautonomia Awareness Month. Whereas dysautonomia, pronounced dysautonomia, is a group of medical conditions that result in a malfunction of the autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for automatic bodily functions such as respiration, heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, temperature control, and more. And whereas dysautonomia impacts over 70 million people around the world and includes conditions such as diabetic autonomic neuropathy, vasovagal syncope, pure autonomic failure, and postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And whereas dysautonomia impacts people of any age, gender, race, or background, including many individuals living in Lake Bluff. And whereas dysautonomia can be very disabling, and disability can result in social isolation, stress on the families of those impacted, and financial hardship. And whereas some form of dysautonomia can result in death, causing tremendous pain and suffering for those impacted and their loved ones. And whereas increased awareness about dysautonomia will help patients get diagnosed and treated earlier, save lives, and foster support for individuals and family coping with dysautonomia in our community. And whereas Dysautonomia International, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that advocates on behalf of patients living with dysautonomia, encourages communities to celebrate Dysautonomia Awareness Month each October around the world. And whereas we seek to recognize the contribution of medical professionals, patients, and family members who are working to educate our citizenry about dysautonomia in Lake Bluff. Now, therefore, I, Régis Charlot, Village President of the Village of Lake Bluff, Illinois, do hereby proclaim this month of October as Dysautonomia Awareness Month in the Village of Lake Bluff. Passed on this day. Thank you. Next is a proclamation designating October 23rd to October 31st, 2021 as Red Ribbon Week. Whereas the most precious resources we have, our future leaders, are the children in our community. Whereas children face decisions about using alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and other drugs as early as their elementary school years. And whereas alcohol and drug abuse in this nation have reached epidemic stages. And whereas it is critical that the adults in children's lives take the time to talk to them regularly about the risk of alcohol and other drugs, symbolized by the red ribbons in our community. And whereas parents, teachers, and community leaders play an important role in providing positive activities which will give youth the opportunity to choose healthy lifestyle. And whereas the Village of Lake Bluff, Lead Croya, Speak Up Coalition, and our local schools are taking an active role in building assets in our youth and helping to teach them about positive decision-making. Now, therefore, I, Régis Charlot, Village President of the Village of Lake Bluff, Illinois, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through October 31st, 2021 as Red Ribbon Week in the Village of Lake Bluff and urge all citizens to do what they can to help our youth make a commitment to a drug-free life. Passed on this day. Thank you. Next, item number 4 is the consideration of the minutes of the September 22nd, 2021 special joint workshop and September 27, 2021 Village Board regular meetings. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any changes, any discussion?
I had one change that Trustee Marquis caught, actually, in page 3, it's dealing with agenda item number 8. It's the second paragraph following, in response to Trustee Marquis' question. There's a follow-up sentence that should be added that reads something to the effect of Village Administrator Irvin added that certain contractors, especially construction firms, build a village in a somewhat unpredictable manner, which can lead to difficulties when trying to compare month-to-month or year-to-year expenses.
Drew, that was actually for the village board meeting minutes, not the special PCZBA.
I'm sorry, I thought we were covering both here.
Are we covering both? Okay.
That was for that,
Okay.
for the board item.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. Any more change question? Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Brienne.
Aye.
This is
Voice
a
vote.
voiced call. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Next is our non-agenda items and visitors. The village president and board of trustees allocate 15 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the village board of trustees on any matter not listed on this agenda. Each person addressing the village board of trustees is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Anybody? Do we have anybody online?
We do, but they do not appear to be raising their hand. And I think this gentleman is here for an upcoming item anyway, so.
Okay, thank you. Next, next is item number 6. The village board sets the order of a meeting. The village president and board of trustees will entertain requests from anyone present on the order of business to be conducted during the village board meeting. I did receive a couple of requests for people present in this room, specifically item number 12 regarding the Lake Bluff village celebrating our 125th anniversary, and item 8 A and B.
A and B.
A and B. Any more item to be selected? So let's move on to item number
So
12.
you say there's no,
Without objection.
Is there any objection?
No.
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 Thank you. Sorry. So next is item 12. A resolution congratulating the citizen of the village of Lake Bluff celebrating the village Casqui Centennial. Thank you. I don't have to say that word again. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
A resolution of congratulating the citizen of the village of Lake Bluff celebrating the village Casqui Centennial. Whereas in 1875, a group of yes.
It's a lot to read.
I think we should read that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
you're the boss?
Yeah.
Yes.
I am the one
Can we
getting
see
in
how much
trouble.
is on there?
It's long.
Yeah. Absolutely read it.
Okay,
And you can actually meet Mark at the podium and read it.
okay.
I just caught a glimpse of it.
It's long.
Oh, thank you. Oh, people. I put myself in that situation myself. So, a resolution congratulating the citizen of the village of Lake Bluff celebrating the village Queskicentennial. Whereas in 1875, a group of Methodist ministers led by Solomon Thatcher of River Forest purchased 100 acres of lakefront property from Ben Close, the youngest son of the first settlers, and the Lake Bluff Meeting Association was formed. The little settlement of Rockland was renamed Lake Bluff. The association planned a resort similar to the Chautauqua movement in the East, one that would provide not only religious activity, but also cultural, social, educational, and recreational programs. In 1895, Lake Bluff ensured its future as a suburb and incorporated as a village. And whereas during the First World War, Lake Bluff was proclaimed the most patriotic small town in America for the effort of the residents in supporting the Red Cross and purchasing an ambulance to send to France. Thank you. You're welcome. In the 1920s, Lake Bluff made great plans to join the other North Shore suburbs in the race to attract new homes and growing families, while expanding its downtown business district. Growth finally came in the baby boom era after the Second World War, as new subdivisions opened along Green Bay Road. And whereas now a full-fledged suburb with a population of 5,632 people, Lake Bluff is an inviting North Shore suburb of Chicago and was noted as one of the top 20 great towns and neighborhoods by Chicago Magazine of April 2010. It is a village that offers exceptional New England-like charm, a high quality of life, fine residential neighborhoods, distinctive recreational opportunities, a thriving downtown, and high-performing public and private schools. And whereas engagement and volunteerism are the essence of our community culture in Lake Bluff, which never relinquished its small-town flavor and friendly spirit over the past 125 years, and which has been exemplified over the past 3 years by the Lake Bluff 125 Celebratory Committee, in partnership with the Lake Bluff History Museum created by former village president Kathleen O'Hara, chaired by former village trustee Mark DeWart, standing next to me, and comprised of Eric Bailey, John Beeler, Gillian Chapman, Glenn Cole, Chris Fisher, Deborah Fisher, Mary Francoeur, Anne Grant, Lynn Grenier, Drew Irvin, Jericho Felda, Susan Kokanda, Steve Krause, Jim Leckman, Jennifer and Steve Leventhal, current village trustee Joy Markey, here at these days, Catherine McKechnie, former village clerk Megan Michael, Matt Nilsson, Jonah Rolek, George and Pam Russell, and Wendy Warren. The committee was supported by staff from the village of Lake Bluff Library, Lake Bluff Park District, and the Lake Bluff Lake Forest Chamber of Commerce to plan and implement activities celebrating the 125th anniversary of Lake Bluff Incorporation as a village. And whereas the 125th Celebratory Committee persevered through the COVID-19 pandemic to steadfastly plan a series of community events to celebrate Lake Bluff's 125th birthday as a community, which included the creation of the Lake Bluff Historical Walking Tour application, the installation of a new public art to include dogs on the bluff, and interactive murals in the Center Business District, the installation of a Lake Bluff 125th commemorative brick walkway and anniversary garden adjacent to Village Hall, the Lake Bluff 125th commemorative quilt sewn by the village quilters of Lake Bluff, Lake Forest, a community day of service hosted by Lake Bluff Open Lands, a float in the Lake Bluff 4th of July parade, a Lake Bluff beach cleanup and bonfire with Korea teams, a variety of programs sponsored by the Lake Bluff Park District and the Kiwanis of Lake Bluff and Lake Forest, a modern Chautauqua nature and environment educational symposium with the Union Church of Lake Bluff and Lake Bluff, fall downtown floral and landscaping decoration by the Lake Bluff Garden Club, Americana music on the Village Green sponsored by Grace United Methodist Church of Lake Bluff, and culminating by a community birthday bash with entertainment by the local music group Bushwood, cake and a fireworks show. Before I continue, what you have done is properly amazing. That is a list that baffles me. I will continue. It's amazing. Whereas, it's a font of 4, by the way. Whereas the 125th Celebratory Committee and Village of Lake Bluff are forever grateful for the many and generous sponsors that made the celebration possible, to include title sponsor Northwestern Medicine, Abbott, Alco Mutual Life and Annuity, Lake Forest Bank and Trust, Uline, Pasquesi Home and Gardens, Nielsen Macy Vanillas, GGL Group Compass Realtors, Ragsdale Inc., Greg's Auto Body Inc., Krugel Cobbles Inc., Marini Landscape, Joanna Rolek, and the many community members that donated to the Lake Bluff 125th anniversary celebration. The committee is also grateful to our community partners, including the Village of Lake Bluff History Museum, Lake Bluff Park District, Lake Bluff Garden Club, Lake Bluff Open Lands, the Union Church of Lake Bluff, and the Grace United Methodist Church of Lake Bluff. Recognition is also deserving of the many artists and sponsors of the 2020 Dogs on the Bluff public art installment and other art projects accomplished in the summer of 2021. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the President and Board of Trustees of the Village of Lake Bluff, Lake County, Illinois, that the village congratulates the 125th Celebratory Committee for their tireless efforts, and the foregoing recitals are incorporated in this resolution as the findings of the President and Board of Trustees on this historic occasion, and wish all Lake Bluff citizens the best years to come. Mark, thank you very much.
On behalf of the committee, we'd certainly like to thank everyone in the community. This has been a stretched effort over time, as you might imagine, because of the pandemic. A great deal, almost all of the credit, beyond our gracious sponsors, goes to the members of our committee who, for one way or another, were signed up for about a 2-year hitch, and it sort of stretched over time. But truly, they persevered. We persevered like everyone else through Zoom, through the pandemic, through reschedules and cancellations. We ported almost everything from 2020 into 2021. And it was incredibly exciting to see so many people in Lake Bluff and the area join us for our birthday bash 2 weeks ago. It was an incredible party, lots of fun, the most incredible fireworks show I've ever seen. And again, thank you to the committee. Thank you for our community, and thank you to our sponsors, and thank you for recognizing us this evening. Thank you so very much.
the amount of work that was done is absolutely incredible, and you really have bettered Lake Bluff. So from me looking at our community every day, you have done an incredible amount of work, so thank you very much.
We'd like to think that we've left something behind for future Lake Bluff residents and for our community.
Indeed, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is item 8A, and that would be our village administrator's report.
Thank you.
Mr. Irvin?
Sure. And then one little note too is for items for consideration, 13 should be tagged on after 8B.
Okay.
It's related to the church's application. Tonight, under my report, there's 2 requests for fee waivers. The first one comes from the Union Church. Tonight, we have with us a representative from Krugel Cobbles, John Hirsch, in the back, who was mentioned as a sponsor, by the way, earlier tonight as part of the presentation. But there's essentially 2 permits that they're seeking fee waivers at the Union Church for. One is to replace a sign. That license agreement's item 13 on tonight's agenda, and the second one is to rebuild a ramp at the rear entrance. The fee for the sign would be $425, and the fee for the ramp just around $95. Again, this was actually talked about in the previous meeting of the Finance Committee about the village's practice. Don't have a specific policy yet, but similar situations, case by case, has been reviewed, and fees similar to this, when requested, have been waived.
And so at this time, unless there's further discussion, I would recommend that we go ahead and waive that. Any further discussion?
Anybody to second this motion?
Oh,
And just to clarify, to waive the fees, both of
Yes.
them?
yes. Second?
Drew, there won't be any additional admin fees with that, correct?
No,
Okay.
neither of them.
Okay.
So we need a roll call vote.
Trustee Briand?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Abstain.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkerman?
Aye.
Thank you.
So item B, the next item deals with the request to waive fees for work that's currently going on at 667 Rockland. I usually don't do this, but this is somewhat complicated because it involves different sections of the zoning code. I'm going to go and I'll read the cover memo, then I'll supplement it with some additional information that I think may be helpful to you all in your consideration of this. So back in November of 2020, TriStone Development, who's the general contractor, who I think is on this call too, participating virtually, submitted an application for a significant demolition review by the Historic Preservation Commission. And in December of 2020, they submitted a building permit application on behalf of the owners who are here tonight, also Joe and Jennifer Zeit, who had purchased a property, again, on Rockland. And in part of their answers to the questions dealing with significant demolition review in the questionnaire, they stated that they were only proposing to demolish the existing semi-attached, unstable single-car garage, and in doing so, they would make way for an attached 2-car garage in addition to the rear of the home. And the building permit application described the proposed work as addition of garage and interior remodel per architectural plans. So the Lake Bluff Village Code has different definitions of demolition for different purposes. There's an attached memo that kind of gets into those details, but a house can be considered demolition per the definition in Title IX of the Building Code merely because the drywall is being removed from the interior of more than half of the house, while still not being a demolition per the definition in Title I, which involves the demolition tax, since more than half the house would have been completely removed to trigger that requirement. So after review of the plans, application for an approval of a side yard setback variance to allow for the rear addition to align with the existing non-conforming north side of the house. So this house had a lot of steps going through the process. There's building permit review, there was historic preservation review, there was zoning relief necessary. So they went through that process, and there was also clarifications offered with the contractor regarding the intended scope of this demolition to clarify that, because it became very important when it comes to the zoning relief. A permit was ultimately issued in May of 2021. So late, probably the third week of August, actually August 23rd, a resident in the neighborhood messaged village staff to ask about the scope of the demolition, thinking it was different than what he had been heard in the hearing. And so staff went out to the site and checked it out, and our building code supervisor identified that the house is being torn down to the foundation. And at that time, the contractor was notified that now that you had triggered the demolition tax, which is required pursuant to Title I, and that information was relayed to the owner, a conversation was had, and there's some correspondence from the contractor as well as Mr. Zeit in your packet, explaining why they do not believe that they should be required to pay the demolition permit fees. The way the code works, there isn't, the process for asking for a waiver of fees, as you all know, is coming to the village board. That's the process that we have. And the demolition tax, as is spelled out in the code, is required simply when more than half of the house is completely removed, which was ultimately what happened. Now, the Zeits made it clear that they did so because of new information discovered by them, but the code doesn't consider that. It says if A happens, then B. We had a conversation, I had a conversation with Mr. Zeit, I had a conversation with the building code supervisor. We talked with other building code supervisors of other communities that have a similar tax on the books, and we looked at, are there processes available that there may be conditions or circumstances may dictate a waiver of such fees, just out of curiosity. And what we found is that the answer is Lake Forest and Highland Park have a process that allows for a fee that could be rebated to an owner if certain circumstances are true, one of which is that the homeowner lived in the house for a period of, I think, 3 years. And then they also, after demolition takes place and reconstruction, they live in it for another 3 years. And we think that the goal of that was to allow people who are living in town for a long time, had a change in circumstances, family grew, or something like to that effect, that they wouldn't be penalized for staying in the same house and so forth, and they didn't want to punish, so to speak, with that demolition tax, homeowners who had longtime residents who had intentions of staying in town. We also talked, Highland Park had a similar process, but they did also have on the books a discretionary decision made by the building official that could say if there were circumstances that made it warranted that maybe there could be a reduced amount or so forth. But I think our conversations with Highland Park was they've tried to get away with that because it became so discretionary, and it was, well, how much mold is too much and how much termites is too much. And then they also both said, listen, both situations can be remedied. You can remedy mold and you can remedy termites. So that they've kind of gotten away from that and tried not to approve any of those requests because of those reasons. So those are some things that we talked about internally, knowing our code didn't have any discretion or any, it was indifference towards reason of why demolition took place. So I know Mr. Zeit's here. I think you had a prepared statement.
If the board would allow me to, that would be.
Absolutely.
But that concludes staff's report. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I do have questions, but I can listen to Mr. Zeit first.
Let's have your presentation, and we'll queue.
Sure.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
So please introduce yourself, and we'll follow that with questions.
Thank you, Mr. President and the board, for allowing me to come here tonight to talk. Also on, I believe, is our builder, Jeremy Velikoff. My name is Joseph Zeit. My wife Jennifer and I purchased the home at 667 Rockland almost a year ago. This is a tough act to follow, the 150-year proclamation, the church doing such good things. It's always tough to follow the good stuff, right? So this is a unique position, I think, that we are in. It's something that we have talked, Mr. Irvin and I had talked, we've talked at pretty great lengths about kind of how this all came about. One of the major parts of this home was the allure, the curb appeal, all the things that I think everybody looks for when they are purchasing their home, especially us coming from a condominium to a new single-family home. We met with architects, we met with our builder, we looked at a number of things, and all of it led to keeping the structure with the addition and the two-car garage. The aesthetic, everything, I think if you have had an opportunity to do some looking into our plans, you'll see the existing structure as well as the current plans as they are, as they sit, really look almost exactly the same. There has never been a waiver by us to deviate from that, and it currently is not the plan to deviate from that now. There is no intention to deviate from that plan. That is our house that we want to see built. One of the other major things I think that is important is we wanted to incorporate the existing structure to avoid really unnecessary waste. What a lot of these homes are, you see a lot of homes tearing down, or a lot of builders or people tearing down existing structures of homes that are perfectly fine. They look wonderful. They have great bones and everything about them is great, but because they don't like it, they tear it down. That was not the case with us. That was definitely not what we had intended to do. Again, like Mr. Irvin said, in August of this year, after a significant period of time where we went through a number of back and forth with the village, calls, architectural meetings, things of that nature, we were able to finally do our demolition. It was discovered that there were issues that presented an unsafe structure. I know many of the members, trustees, and people here, obviously their home is very important to them. As somebody with a wife and a daughter, having a safe, structured home was my number one concern. Knowing what that house looked like on the inside, it just became a situation where safety was a concern. Remediation was not something that we believed would have been safe to do given what the state of the house was in when we purchased it. So we made the decision that based on safety and based on what we had looked at on a number of different levels, that we thought it was in our best interest to demo the existing structure, keep the foundation, which is still intact, and move forward. It was never our intention to deceive the village. Obviously, we had had a number of conversations with members. So that's where we stand. My request is that the board and the members consider a waiver of the fee. If that is not acceptable, Mr. Irvin has presented a couple of different options. An adjustment of the fee, I think, I don't know how we could go about talking about a fair adjustment. What would be fair, what isn't fair? So, you know, and then obviously the other option is the sort of the weight and rebate, sort of the homeowner. I think because of this unique position, because of everything that you guys have and you've seen and you've heard and all the plans and our commitment to building this home, I believe that we have presented what is an adequate case of a waiver of that fee. We'd ask that the village do so. Present is our builder, so if you have any, I'm not a construction man, so I don't have any idea about any of that, but if you have any construction questions, you can just ask Jeremy, who's on. Anything else, I'd be glad to answer. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Questions on the
Start.
board?
Yeah.
Do you want me to
Yes.
I'll sit. Thank you.
So what I wanted to try to understand is what fees, if any, were paid for this possible remodel? Like, is there fees that, that were paid because at first it was planned to be a remodel, and this would be in addition to, or that would be an offset from? Tell me sort of how this differs from a building permit fee.
So Mike, do you want to handle that question?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, yeah, they paid the regular building permit fees. They paid the 3%, and I think they also paid for a upgrade of their water service to upgrade the tap size from 1 inch to 1.5 inches.
I see.
So the demo tax is separate. It's a tax, not a fee.
I see.
And so if they demolish, if they completely remove more than 50% of the house, they're supposed to pay the demo tax in addition to the regular permit fees.
I understand that. So this is in addition to the building permit fee, which is.
At the time when the permits were issued.
Yes.
That we didn't believe they needed to pay it because of their scope of the work, and they didn't either. So only when they made the decision in
Yeah.
the field to demolish it is when that fee was triggered.
Yes, okay, that's what I understood, and so let's turn back the clock and pretend for a minute that they had come and said, we're gonna tear this place down. What then would have been owed?
This additional $10,000 demolition, everything plus this demo tax.
Everything plus the demo tax. In any situation where that's happened, and surely that's happened for others, a house I used to live in, actually, 20 years ago, was torn down when I left.
Yeah.
What, in any situation where this happens, have we waived a demolition fee for others?
No, not to my knowledge. Mike, I don't think, because I've been here longer than you have, yeah, no.
So,
yeah, no.
so you're saying any situation where we've had complete demolition or over 50%, we assess this fee. So it's sort of irrelevant when it came up, right? I mean, I appreciate that midway they had a terrible surprise. And it's also irrelevant whether we knew or didn't know or any of that. Really, whenever somebody demolishes, they pay a demolition fee. Is that?
That's how the code presents, yes.
Okay. And unlike some of the other municipalities, we do not have a proportionality process or a mitigation process, if you will.
Correct.
And do I understand that I think it was Highland Park, some notion is that if you're doing the town a favor by tearing it down, it might be waived? Is that, well, you mentioned mold, or in what circumstance would another town waive? Like, oh, thank goodness you finally tore that down, so we won't make you pay? Or, I just don't understand where, even despite the fact that we haven't done it before, why would a town choose to do that? And how is mold relevant? I mean, you mentioned.
Yeah, I think the idea is, from time to time, people discover things when they peel off drywall and other things that they didn't, conditions that they weren't aware of existing prior to developing the scope of the work and plans. So I think the idea of being realistic and acknowledging those things happen from time to time, I think that's one thing. I think your question you're asking is, why would somebody consider such a thing? I think they just designed their policies, again, like earlier, like for the Lake Forest example of where they would rebate that. And when they created that tax, they consciously said, okay, well, perhaps they heard during public comment about creating this, well, do we want to necessarily have longtime residents who are going to stay in the same location have to pay that fee or tax? Mm-hmm. And so they opted to design their policy not to do that. And that was just a choice they made in shaping that policy. Again, going back to the village's impetus for those taxes, it was to acknowledge that construction projects of that magnitude have a unique impact on our roadway system, and these impact fees are set aside to help pay for our roadway infrastructure because it is so expensive, obviously, to do so, and that these, the trucks that come in and the amount of heavy equipment that comes in to do this type of work does have a higher impact on the roads, and that was that was the conversation that this board years ago had and said, this is why we want to create this fee for that purpose.
How long has it been in effect, roughly, in number of decades rather than precise years?
I guess close to 2 decades?
Close to 2 decades?
Yeah, yeah.
And how did we determine the amount? Is that a formula of some kind, or?
It's a flat tax.
It's flat tax.
That was, I believe, based off of market comparables.
Tell me what you mean by that. So had his
Other
house,
communities had similar type taxes in place.
so it doesn't matter whether he tore down a 5,000 square foot house or a 2,500 square foot house, the tax is flat?
That is correct.
Can we hear from Jeremy about what exactly is constituting unsafe? I'd like to have a better idea of what we're talking about. And I'm sorry, Susan.
No, I didn't mean to say that, but I wanted to just point out something about your question, because the code doesn't care, right? I mean, maybe we should care.
Well, and that's why, because we're here considering a waiver, and I don't want to be in the business of discouraging, or rather encouraging homeowners to avoid the flat rate tax and put up a structure that is ultimately unsafe that will be passed down to potentially new buyers one day. At the same time, I do think it's arbitrary, and I want to understand what these homeowners were facing when they made the decision.
Understood.
Yeah.
I have a question actually very much at that level, at that decision, at that inflection point, I should say. When I read the Jeremy Velichkov declaration, this is in the attachment, in the last paragraph, it says the homeowners were immediately contacted and brought to the site upon determination was made that it would not be cost effective to repair a structure that was unsafe, at which time the homeowner, along with TriStone, made the decision to remove the structure entirely. Okay, so my question is, what is the process to go from removing 2 garages to destroying the house? Is there a process with village that says, well, we have changed our mind, we need to destroy more of the house? And what is the permitting process at this point, or what are the administrative steps to get to that point? Or are there such administrative steps?
There are, do you want to, Jeremy Velikov to answer the question first, or?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from him so I can understand. I mean, I need to understand, are we looking at mold and it was cost effective to pull it down and not, mitigate, or are we looking at frail structure, that's gonna fall over? I just wanna hear a little bit more, because I think at this point, the letter from Jeremy is impassioned, but a little vague.
You hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, so I'm Jeremy Velichkov, represent TriStone Development. As it relates to the structure and the scope of work, what we were planning on doing is obviously demo the detached garage, along with the roof structure and ceiling joists in the ranch home itself. Removing all of the drywall, plaster, there was multiple, between drywall and plaster throughout the house, depending on the remodels, however old the house was. Not knowing the history of the home up until a couple months ago. In demoing the drywall, there were multiple cuts throughout the house as it relates to whether windows had been changed, doors, along with the mold. So there was definitely structural issues that were not able to be seen due to the plaster and the drywall. And there was deterioration from water damage over a long period of time as well, as it relates to the subfloor, the exterior walls, things of that nature, whether they were window leaks, roof leaks, door leaks, all of those combinations, all things that were not seen, obviously, until we got to that full point of demolition.
Can I ask a follow-up question there?
Go ahead.
So Jeremy, when you and the homeowner decided to, or when you guys decided to just take take down the house? Was there any discussion of maybe letting the village know you were thinking about changing your plan?
From my perspective, at that time, I didn't know the difference between, I had talked to Mike Croak numerous times. I didn't realize that this would have put us into a demo tax situation. We went through the committee that waived, I thought, the demo tax initially. So in talking with the homeowner and understanding the situation we were up against, you know, as a builder, I also have to provide a warranty. So, you know, sometimes when you get into these situations, you know, again, those are the conversations that I'm having with my client. So again, unaware that this pushed the envelope until I received a phone call from Mike, I guess after the homeowner had called into the village.
I guess I was more wondering just the change of scope of the whole project.
Look at it like this. So the scope of the project that everybody was aware of from the start was a removal of a detached garage, the entire roof structure of the home, basically leaving the exterior walls of the house. Because if you look at the plans, all the interior walls, it's an open floor plan. So really, I don't know what the square foot of that ranch was, but I can't think it was more than 1,200 square feet, give or take.
Recording stopped.
On the first floor. So we were left strictly with exterior walls at that point in time. So the only thing that changed after that was then the exterior structure
Recording in progress.
and the subfloor down to the concrete foundation. So a remodel is a relative term. This was a very extensive remodel / addition to this home.
And Jeremy, the mold that was discovered was not discoverable during due diligence or doing the kind of the pre-development work. This was all found afterwards.
Correct. Yeah, the house was not touched. The house was not touched at all until obviously we received permit. The only thing that we asked for was to demo the detached garage so that we could remove the trees. There was no way to access the backyard without that. We did get the approval to go ahead and do that, but we did not touch the inside of the structure until after we had our permit.
Mike, can you answer the question that was asked earlier by Trustee Marquis regarding and by Village President Charlot regarding the process when there's a change in the scope of a permit issuance in terms of what should happen?
Yeah, yes, I'd be happy to. A builder really should submit a revised plan or in some way get approval from the village for any significant changes to their plan, to their scope of work. So, I mean, regardless of whether it's triggering a demo tax or not, I mean, most of the time we're not talking about things that are. But either way, the whole purpose of them contacting the village and submitting a revision is to, confirm that there aren't unexpected consequences to those changes, really.
Mike, can I ask another question? Has there been a circumstance like this before where somebody intended to do a smaller remodel, discovered something, and then it triggered the demolition tax, or most of the time with the demolition tax, it's pre-planned?
I can't think of another time in Lake Bluff where it's triggered the demo tax unexpectedly.
I just, oh, sorry.
You had a question.
Barbara, before me. I just wanted to acknowledge to the homeowners that, completing a renovation project is probably one of the most arduous processes. It's expensive, it's long, and however long and expensive you think it's going to be, just double it, right? So, you come here at a very painful middle of the project point, and so we don't want to seem cavalier or callous or any of those things, because I know that things are raw and all of that. So we're glad that you've chosen to make Lake Bluff your home. We're glad that you want to be investing in your home and making it something you're proud of. And it looks like your plans were beautiful. It took what was existing and made some tweaks that went through a review process, and it was passed. And so you've been through a lot already, and we acknowledge that. So you very clearly presented the course of events, and I mean, I can see that intent is not really at issue. We don't think that something was necessarily deceitful, and stuff happens. You open up the walls, and there's a story there that has to be told, and it's unfortunate. Nor is the need to demolish. I don't think that's in question. I'm taking the word of you and this expert that says, you know what, that there's a point, there's a tipping point, and this is just, it's gone there. And so really, I feel like it's our duty to say, well, we have this history of a tax of, $10,000 if it qualifies as a demo. Intent doesn't make it a demo or not. The ability to foresee a problem doesn't qualify it as a demo or not. And do we want to change what has happened over the course of 20 years and say, we like these people so much and their situation is so, sad that we want to change that. And I think that that's really a difficult thing for us to do, to say that, well, we like these people, so we're going to offer a waiver. We do like these people, but I don't know that that is the reason that we can say the code, which is indifferent to all those things, we want to change it.
I think there's a fairness component to it. A lot of people have paid the demolition tax. I'm one of them. I know I feel your pain. I remember writing that check out, and, and things do change when you're renovating and redoing a house. I live in that neighborhood. I know the house. I hope it's going to be beautiful when it's built, but I do feel like for most homeowners that are renovating, if they have that tax, even if the situation changes and it comes up later, they still pay it. And I think I would feel a little uncomfortable waiving it because I'm sure there's a lot of different situations where people could say, oh, mine should have been waived, or, I should have had that situation as well. So, but I feel your pain. I know it's hard in the middle of the project all of a sudden to have another expense that you weren't really thinking was going to be happening for you.
Drew, you mentioned the rebate policy in Lake Forest. Does that just mean if they stay in the house for 3 years that they would get the rebate of $10,000 fully back? And I know you said like lifetime, like they've been there for a while. I know both of them grew up here and went to Lake Forest High School, and I know Jennifer grew up in Lake Bluff, so I don't know how that applies.
I'm pretty sure, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, the Lake Forest Code states that you have to live in your residence 3 years prior to doing the demolition. You pay all the fees, including the demolition fee, and then after a period of 3 years, you can request it to be rebated. Is that how it works, Mike?
Yeah, I know that's how Highland Parks worked. Okay. So probably Lake Forest too. Yeah.
Do we have we don't have any sort of condition like that?
We do not.
And just to clarify what you just explained, unfortunately, the Zeits have not lived in the home for 3 years, so even if that policy was in place, we wouldn't be able to apply it to them.
Mike, how many demolition permits a year, roughly?
Really just one or two that meet that have the demo tax. There's usually a couple more that are the demo by the Title IX definition, but don't require the tax.
Can you elaborate on what it means to be Title IX?
Sure. So the Title IX requirements, that is if you're taking drywall off more than 50% of the house, it's considered more than 50% demolished. So you have to go through the HPC Historic Preservation Review. That type, it meets that definition of demolition. But unless you're completely removing more than half the house, it doesn't meet the demo tax, which is in Title I definition.
This was based on the replacement value. This is 50% of the replacement value, correct?
No, the replacement
not.
value
Area.
issue
Okay,
is,
got it.
that was for the zoning board for the side yard setback. This is, yeah, 50% of the actual house.
I just think this is pretty straightforward. We have to come at this as fiduciaries and as people who are responsible for some level of expectations for people that come here. People may have grown up here, but for people that move here, they have to know that we're going to dole out these things with some equity. So in the interest of fairness, I think the expectation should be that if you take your whole house down, you pay the demolition tax. It seems pretty straightforward. The ordinance isn't vague. One thing that I know, because I've attended a ton of Historic Preservation Commission meetings, is that I think the step was skipped here. Is it not true that prior to taking the whole house down, since the original application was for significant demolition, which is distinctly different in the ordinance from a total demolition, that they should have returned to the HPC? Is that not true?
So technically, I think we've kind of, there's that in play. I think the answer is technically yes.
Okay.
There's also the issue of the zoning relief with the setback, and there was a question whether or not the Zeits were going to have to remove the foundation as well. And so if they did that, that would jeopardize their zoning relief. And
Yeah.
in effect, the idea that they were in the position to move the house and make it completely compliant with the code. They haven't gone that route yet.
Right.
Don't know if that's going to stay with the foundation. Yeah. So, but we've tried not to overcomplicate this, right, with the sense of trying to follow the spirit of the code.
Right.
And at the same time, acknowledge that this is an arduous process, and for the same reason, we didn't issue a red tag on the project, we didn't stop work. The idea, we were in communication with them, they were responsive, we didn't want to do that. Obviously, their neighbors want to get this house done as soon as possible, we're not trying to slow that down. So, and all, on that spirit, that's part, to answer your question.
And I appreciate that, but I walk by the house a lot because I live a block away, and so I walk the dog a lot in the neighborhood, and it was there and then it was gone. And I know from experience that that is not how things work here, that generally there's a sign that goes up,
Yeah.
et cetera. So that bothers me a little bit, because I think that we have to have some expectations here. So do the neighbors, the neighborhood. We're talking about, there's this reference to nuisance, et cetera. People have to have some measure of stability in their neighborhood. And I've talked to a neighbor, and he said, do you know what's going on? I said, no, I don't know what's going on. The house was there and then it was gone. But in terms of paying this, since this is a request for a waiver, I didn't find any of the arguments relevant, because as Trustee Ankerman points out, intent is not relevant. That this is a very straightforward situation. If I purchased the house I grew up in, I would have to demolish it. I would fully expect to pay the fee, the tax. That's just what we're asking. It's pretty straightforward. It's simple, and I think it's tempting to try and create exceptions, but then for those of us, we know that's just a slippery slope to nothing good. And we've been talking about this in other meetings. We have to set expectations, and this is a reasonable one in my view. So I think that this is just an unfortunate situation of finding something you didn't expect, and that's not fun. But I've certainly had that experience in my own home. But unfortunately, I just don't see a compelling case here, because the ordinance doesn't allow for it. I think we've done a good job of somebody did a good job of drafting a really clear and concise path for us to follow. I think we need to follow it.
So from a process standpoint, unless there's more comments from this board,
I just want to say that I'm appreciative of what you said to them, to the homeowners. We welcome you. You happen to have a board here of many North Terrace folks, so come over for a beer eventually, and we'll try to ease some of that pain. And I know the house is going to end up being beautiful, and you're going to have a very satisfied life raising your child in Lake Bluff.
So from a process standpoint, unless there's any more comments on this board, is there a motion to deny this request?
Yes, it is, with personal regret that I would make a motion to deny the request for a waiver of the demolition fee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is this a voice call or roll call?
Be a voice vote.
Voice call. Anyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion carries, the request is denied. I'm sorry. Next, we are resuming our agenda.
You have, going back to item, the license agreement for the church.
13, right?
Yeah. Again, you may have to say without objection, yeah. Without objection, can we take 13?
Without objections, 13, item 13. No objections, thank you. Next is item 13, a resolution approving a license agreement to use a portion of village property on 525 East Prospect Avenue. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. The Union Church of Lake Bluff would like to replace the wood sign which was erected in front of a church in 1992. The right-of-way for Prospect Avenue is 100 feet wide, which is unusually wide for a residential street. The existing wood sign is in the public right-of-way, and the proposed new sign will be also, despite being behind the public sidewalk by approximately 2 feet and 10 inches. The replacement sign was reviewed by the Architectural Board of Review at their October 5th meeting and approved by a vote of 5-0. During this meeting, Brad Anderson, the neighbor to the west, commented that he likes the appearance of a sign, but he would prefer that it not be on public property. The village has previously approved other license agreements to authorize the installation of private improvements such as fencing and landscaping in village-owned areas adjacent to private property. You will find attached to this resolution, a resolution approving a license agreement to use a portion of village property, a plat of survey, site plan, and a proposed site design.
No, not this time.
Comments, discussion.
I was interested to find out that it's that far of a setback on that, on Prospect.
100 feet of right-of-way is.
Oh, right-of-way.
It surprisingly comes up to the doors, so many homes along that street.
Right.
And that the village did a study years ago examining its right-of-ways and wrestled with the idea, should the village sell or turn that back over to private property owners, and ultimately chose to hold on to right-of-ways of that size in many other areas. A study can always be revisited, but, I think one of the rubs that came up with that is if the village gives it up, then that would increase the area going into the bulk calculations.
Yeah.
So that became the friction point, I think, for that, and said, I think, let it be, to quote the Beatles. Yes.
So I have a question. So the sign was reviewed by the ABR,
Yes.
and it was approved
Recommended for
unanimously.
approval. Yep.
And so, based on that, I would.
Actually approved. I'm sorry, they have the authority to approve it, subject to this license agreement.
Okay, well, I mean, outside of that, though, they looked at very specific things. What are the materials that this is made of?
Lighting.
How large is it? Is it, they were very, rigorous in their review.
Yes.
And the location is the same location that the old sign was.
And do the
So-
right-of-way almost an unfortunate necessity.
Right. And so, so the question is, what would be the reason to deny that license when others can say, I would like to put a fence, I would like to landscape, or whatever. And so we had one person come forward and say, it's pretty, but I don't want it. But it was there before. And so, I don't see a reason to deny the licensing request. It seems reasonable. I mean, It was there, the people who,
Right.
yeah, I just think it seems reasonable to have it there. It's been there. The new sign looks nice. It's been approved. I see no reason not to.
Any more comments? Any more reflection?
It's a beautiful upgrade.
Yeah, I
Really-
like the.
It's really
the
nice
stone.
looking.
Krugel.
Yeah, I agree with
There,
trustee Angelman.
there was a question asked at the meeting regarding the lighting. There was a light, they had more, and I don't know if you had a chance to review that, the lighting, to have more of, I think. Oh, you want to come up here? Sorry.
Good evening, everyone. John Hirsch with Krugel Cobbles, also member of the Union Church. We discussed the lighting, and there was a concern of a halo effect on the signs. So we're going to be using downlighting that gets installed right underneath the coping, which basically gives a very subtle glow onto the sign in lieu of the current lighting we have, which are basically spotlights that are on the ground shooting up at the sign. It's currently a wood sign. It's going to be a stone sign that is going to be of the same materials that our new courtyard is made of, and it's going to be a limestone engraved sign, very elegant, basically in the same location as the existing sign. And to the point of moving the sign to off of the village property, it would literally be in our shrubbery. So it would be difficult to notify people that it is the Union Church if it was off of the public right of way without moving it literally to the east onto the courtyard. So we're asking for understanding of that fact and approval.
So the lighting is improved then, basically, instead of shining up.
It's
hot
going to
and
be
it'll be
substantially
more
improved.
subdued.
So for those of you who go by at night, you can see what the lighting looks like now on the courtyard. It's very subtle.
Any more question on the board?
Oh, I did have one question, since I'm just looking at the plans and comparing the photographs of the existing sign with the new one. The new sign's about 4.5 feet tall.
That's right.
Yeah, how tall is the old one?
Similar, it's wood though, so it's more columnar, if you will.
Yeah, and
So
kind of a
and it's-
colonial look.
Yes, scrolly. And I think there's photographs of.
Yes, I am looking at it. I mean,
Yeah.
the new sign will suits the architecture of the church too, compared to the old one. I was just wondering if, because of the opinion of the neighbor to the west, if this was going to be perhaps a little bit shorter and less, but I think the materials may make it integrate nicely too. With the stone, it seems to just kind of.
Well, it matches everything that we did in the courtyard to the
Yeah,
east.
right.
That
No,
we
it looks great.
built in 16.
Any more comment on the board? I don't know if I did ask for a motion. for this
You do,
item.
you have a motion and a second. It can be a voice vote, yes.
It's a voice vote. So if there are no more questions, I would like to call for a voice vote. Anyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, the motion carries. Thank you. Okay. We're back to item number 7A. That would be our village finance report. Item 7A is the warrant reports for September 28th to October 11, 2021, and September 2021 payroll expenditures. As a summary of background and reason of request, the expenditure of village funds for payment of invoices is in the amount of $239,244.60 for October 28 to October 11, 2021, and it is for expenditure of village funds for payment of payroll in the amount of $295,660.84 for September 2021. for a total expenditures of $534,905.44. You will find reports and documents attached. The warrant report for September 28 to October 11, 2021 for $239,000 to $239,244.60, dated 9/28 to 10/11/21. Please note the invoice register report shows checks with a status of open or paid. All checks with the status of open are computer-generated checks for the board's final approval. Checks with a status of paid are checks processed manually. And number two, fiscal year 2020 to 2021 payroll report. Any comments? Any questions? Okay. This is a roll call, right?
You need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brian?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is our village attorney's report. Mr. Friedman, do you have?
No report tonight.
Thank you. Next is the village president's report. First is the establishment of a business advisory ad hoc committee and appointment of member members. The village 2023 strategic plan, the plan includes a vision statement. We will bolster economic vitality. The plan includes several different strategies toward vision attainment by the various geographic areas of a village. The central business district create a planned vision for the growth and sustainability of our downtown, and as such, identify and attract ideal profile businesses to heighten and amplify vibrancy downtown, increase foot traffic by instituting an intelligent mix of business and residential uses, ignite interest in the central business district as a destination location, maximize utility of existing parking infrastructure, and plan for increased demand. Next are Waukegan Road Corridor, retain existing businesses and identify and pursue ideal sales tax-generating businesses, such as maximize the potential and revenue generation of a business park, explore strategies to economically and aesthetically integrate the north side of Route 176 and the intersection of state routes 176 and 41, advocate for near-term construction of a routes 41, 176 interchange, manage impacts of a new Lake Forest hospital and modified campus while maximizing potential benefits. And last, marketing, extend our branding and marketing reach to tout village assets and desirability, such as market to surrounding businesses and relocation companies, target market to potential new businesses, encourage residents to create demand by acting as community ambassadors, and develop marketing material to equip bluffers as brand ambassadors. Over the past several years, there have been certain policy matters and programs considered by the village board which may have benefited by the council of a committee with specialized knowledge and interest in improving the economy of the village and enhancing the local business environment. To that end, Village President Charlot views these opportunities as well suited for a business advisory ad hoc committee, the BAC, to provide advice to the village board, village administrator and village president, More specifically, he would ask the BAC to periodically evaluate the economy of the village of Lake Bluff, identify actions to promote the economic health of a business community, and perform other duties as requested by the village board or as considered advisable by the community and approved by the village board. Pursuant to the Lake Bluff Municipal Code, the village president shall be empowered to appoint from time to time such select or additional committee deemed necessary and proper. To this, I would like to add that we're in a very special time where we are modifying our downtown. We are affecting business for the better, for how we modify our streetscape. And as such, we're really not asking the opinion or clearly asking from a committee standpoint the opinion of business members in this community. And so as such, this is where this idea is coming from. Do I need a motion for that, or?
You would need a motion, and you probably want to clarify the members.
Okay, oh yes. So on the next page, you will find the membership of this committee. 11 members are nominated by the village president and appointed by the village board. Members do not need to be village residents. Proposed members include Joy Markey as our chairperson, followed by Brad Anderson and Deborah Fisher for our real estate community, Rob Douglas and Jeff Lynch, John DeRosier, Gary Lawrence, William Madden, and Ed Pasquesi, Ron Osterline, and Soledad Zistevitz. I would like to mention in that list that 2 members have not accepted to be on this list, and we probably will name these in a further meeting. Also, last, I would like to say that this committee would be meeting on the 4th Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. in the Village Hall boardroom. Is there a motion to approve this request?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you.
Do you want to clarify the 2 names that you haven't been able just to clarify?
Yes, I was not able to get in touch with Mr. William Madden from the Nose dealership and Ed Pasquesi from Pasquesi Home and Gardens. And I've received a positive answer, an enthusiastic answer from the other 8 or 9 names.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Okay. This is such a great idea, and obviously getting feedback from our business owners and leaders is important, and then getting ideas from them that are served up to us is really critical. Drew, I would ask you, have we had a committee like this before, and is there anything we would do differently this time?
So yes is the answer. There's actually been a couple different versions of this. They're on the village, within the village's code is a standing committee for economic development committee, which is made up of 3 members of this body. That's been on the books forever, and the village has had, from time to time, the village president has named members to serve in that capacity. It's been a long time since that's happened. I think it goes back to Christine Letchinger, before they actually had members of the board serving in that field. And actually that group, I think, was one of the first ideas that they did to help support the downtown was the village farmers market. That came from that group and that work. There had been another version of another ad hoc committee that had I guess I say a more narrow mission that was set out and accomplished, and that was the Downtown and Development Committee. You may remember, you were on that one?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but that was the one that was responsible for the village's branding program, as well as the village's look at the Waukegan Road corridor, those plans that working with those consultants and brought through the ZBA and to you all, which changed how the village zoned the Waukegan Road corridor. But there was a very narrow mission, so set up, and then the committee was thanked for the work, and that was it. So this is a more broader mission. It can be changed over time, and but it involves, again, as was pointed out, members from the business community. Some are residents, some are not, but obviously have a foothold in our business community. But that's the similarities and dissimilarities.
One thing I'd like to point out also is, number one, the membership of that committee can change. It's a first shot. I mean, I gave my best to find the people that, from my standpoint, are best representing the committee for the community for what we need today. That might change tomorrow. That's number one. Number two, one of the things I've seen is we're experiencing a time of duress from our standpoint as community citizens, and I know that businesses in this community are experiencing a great time of duress. And I think it's only fair to give a voice to them. If we do something bad, we need to have feedback to say, no, this is where we should be going, and we need to have that voice with us. And that is probably the main argument from my standpoint, to name this committee.
Great.
Can I just say, I agree, I think it is crucial and pertinent to have this committee established. I encourage you in the future to consider digging in and finding more women to put on the committee. We've got fabulous women that you've identified, including our own Joy Markey, and obviously Deborah Fisher, and Soledad as well. But I know of many, many other smart, strong, vocal business women in Lake Bluff who would be assets. And right now we have it's kind of an imbalance on this important committee. So I encourage us all to keep that in mind as we move forward in creating any committees, that diversity is essential to the strength and health of our village and in its leadership.
I would like to respond to that. I do apologize for that oversight. Yes, absolutely, and no contest to including diversity and a fair representation. And I will work on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add to that, Taryn, if you have people that are interested, make sure you share those names with us, because sometimes there's different circles we don't, and you don't hear about people. So anytime, anyone on the board, if you have anyone that is interested, let us know. I'm excited about this committee. I helped draft these bullet points and strategies way back with Drew, when we were drafting the strategic plan. So I'm excited to kind of circle back, and it's a living document, clearly, but to be focused on it, it's going to be really exciting.
Regis, I just wanted to pick up on what Taryn was saying, but a little bit different. I think this is real granular, and we need a couple people at 30,000 feet. A lot of these people are not going to bring anything necessarily new, and I was thinking of people like from our largest community bank, like Wintrust, that are involved in commercial and industrial lending. People that can speak to trends, because we want to get people some new ideas from maybe even reaching out to other communities, maybe that do presentations like, or Main Street USA or something. It's just a thought, because I think we're going to have the driver of the majority of our revenue is west of Green Bay Road. So maybe talking to some people that, and I'm going to pick up on what Joy's saying. I have an idea that I'll forward on to you, but I think we have an opportunity to get the perspective from people as to what's going on regionally. And here we have people going right here, and so in order for us to grow the economy the way that you and all of us want to, like in the CRE sector, but with commercial property. And so the real estate representation is residential. And so in order to grow the business park, we have to have a commercial representation, but somebody that would be doing it, that would probably have a view of it. And I can think of a few people. I think the challenge you probably have is getting people to say yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
but that just occurred to me in terms of like you've got a lot of people that are local, but you want to make sure you have some people that are looking at it from a much broader perspective, so they can throw out what's working elsewhere, maybe not even in the state of Illinois, but someplace else, so that we can, and that's free as opposed to paying consultants to do it. So that was just my feedback.
I think this is excellent feedback. The primary idea was to look at the Chamber of Commerce, but also to look at the people that are in this community to see how, not from an operational standpoint, but from a strategic standpoint, how businesses have a strategic role in this community and how they can contribute to the strategic aspect of running this community, okay? So I was actually very short-minded, short time-minded, where we were touching block 2, we were going to touch block 1. Who are the people that are directly affected by changing the streetscape? This is where we want our feedback. Now, you're absolutely right, from a commercial real estate or from a business park. I have, from the 10 people you have on this list, I probably gave 10 times more phone calls, okay? And I think that the next step after this effort for the next 6 months will be, okay, so now we need to broaden our horizon or change our vision for who we need on this board to address a different strategic need in front of our board and recognize the people that can provide that role in our community. We had to start somewhere. And so from a nothing prevents us from having these people you're thinking about coming to the same meeting, providing the same feedback to Joy and the team created, and to move forward.
Right.
It's not exclusive, but we have to start somewhere.
Sure.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I think I echo some of those broader vision issues that Kate brought up. And I also wanted to affirm that I think Joy is a fantastic, chairperson for this committee. And I really look forward to, her tapping into some of her broader knowledge and her ability to shepherd this group.
I'm actually very pleased for us starting that. I think it will be very good.
Great.
Anything else, discussion-wise? Can I please, this is a voice call or voice call? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. The motion carries.
You said November start, right?
November start, please.
Sorry. Was it the third Thursday of, we'll be on Thanksgiving?
Right.
Every other Thursday.
Everybody here.
No, and just the topics that I've talked about with President Charlot that have been out there. One of, it talks about the marketing. So there was an ad hoc committee, not unlike the Farmers Market Committee that was started for branding. I've been working with them and hit the pause button. This year in the budget is dollars to go out and do a marketing campaign. I have an RFP prepared by this ad hoc group that we put together, and I think one of the first things I put to you all is this, do you want to do this? Does it make sense to do it now? The second thing that I was hoping to have input from this month, I know you're out of town, but was the question of what to do with, in front of Block 1 with the tent and so forth. I've had some conversations with some of the restaurateurs who would like a request certainly to allow that to continue to function as it is today, with the closure through the end of the first quarter of next year as a minimum. And actually the request was, can we do this all next summer too again? So that's coming back. I haven't finished talking to everybody, but that's coming. So really soon, because right now it's authorized to pull up the tent stakes literally at the end of the calendar year. So you'll see that sooner rather than later. So that's some of the more immediate items.
Thank you. Next item is item 10B, that is again in the village president's report. That would be the appointment to various advisory board and commissions, and that would be for Mark DeWart to the Senior Resource Commission. Subject to the consent of the Board of Trustees, the village president appoints members to the village various advisory boards and commissions. Village President Charlot recommends the appointment of Mark DeWart to fill the final vacancy on the Senior Resource Commission. If approved, Mr. DeWart's term will expire on April 30, 2023. Could I please have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion on this item. Any feedback?
I heard he wants to plan a new birthday party. I think
126?
127, maybe,
Oh,
yeah.
New birthday party? No.
Fireworks, okay.
Okay, it's going to be very
Oh,
tight.
that's awesome.
I retired from that 2 weeks ago.
We're all retired from that?
This is a voice vote.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Next is acceptance of the correspondence. Please note all correspondence was delivered to the Village Board of Trustees in the informational reports on September 24 and October 1st, 2021. Is there a motion to accept the correspondence?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Second. Oop. Go ahead.
Mrs. Markey. Any discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Trustee Inkman.
Aye.
Trustee Brienne.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item is item number 14. A resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Glenview for the provision of centralized dispatching services. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The practice of consolidating 911 answering and public safety dispatching services has been utilized through the United States to increase efficiency, reduce costs, and realize infrastructure savings. In 2013, the Village, along with the City of Highland Park and the City of Lake Forest, conducted a feasibility study to investigate potential means of consolidating dispatching services. During the course of a feasibility study, the Village, along with Highland Park and Lake Forest, identified consolidation of dispatching services with the Village of Glenview as an optimal means to obtain increased efficiency and significant financial savings, including without limitation utilizing shared radio frequencies, streamlining technology upgrades, and building redundancy to provide consistent, high-quality dispatching services to each community. To that end, in 2014, the Village entered a 7-year intergovernmental agreement with Glenview for dispatching services through a consolidated dispatch system. This outsourcing produced improved service, financial savings to the Village of just under $1 million over the term of the agreement, access to new and improved technology for all public safety responders. Over the past several months, an extension of this agreement, which was always contemplated, was negotiated by a representative of each impacted agency, so Glenview, Highland Park, Highwood, Highland Park, Lake Bluff, and Lake Forest. At this time, the Village Board is asked to consider approval of an extension to the Village Dispatch Services Agreement with the Village of Glenview for an additional 7-year term. The extension includes new services. So in addition to all current services, dispatch, capital cost, software maintenance, and add-ons since the inception of the agreement, including Rave Alert, Rave Smart 911, ASEAN, and Socrata, Glenview has agreed to provide analytics to the North Center agencies to include dashboards, trend data, and comparables in both data and map formats as new base services to aid in law enforcement and fire and EMS resource deployment. Reasonable cost increases. Annual cost increase under the proposed extension would be 1.96% for calendar year 2022 and 3.75% for year per calendar year 2023 through 2028. And last, continued savings. Independently, the Village could not provide the services at the same costs. The Village's projected savings for the extension period will likely exceed $150,000 per year. Last, both Police Chief Hoskins and Fire Chief Graff recommended approval of this extension. Question and discussion.
When I look at the operating payment schedule, this is the schedule that's determined by that agency, the Glenview group. And so I would imagine that all other participating entities like Forest and Highwood would have similar, about 2% and then 3.75% increases in those out years as well.
Yes.
So it's not that we're paying a rate that's different. We're really kind of in that same bucket, and we're all kind of benefiting from those economies of scale and those additional services.
Yes, and it's proportional to use, in the sense that, Lake Forest are gonna have more calls on us, so they're paying in a proportionally larger amount, same with Highland Park. So yes, it's very similar to breaking, the way it was broken out the first time through the process.
Right. Thank you.
Drew, is there something that we missed by not going this alone? Obviously, the benefit, there's a lot of really great benefits, including saving $150,000 a year, but is there some sort of a service or a benefit that we're losing out on by being part of a consortium?
No, I'd say the opposite. I mean, the quality of services that we receive through this consolidation is, we didn't provide that same level of service when we were doing it on, which we were, we had it in-house.
Yeah.
And the quality and the technology, we couldn't get it. It was overwhelming. There was no reason for us to stay in this business. And frankly, the best thing that can happen to the village moving forward as a consumer of dispatch services is that Lake County gets their actions together and puts together a competitor for Glenview, in terms of offering both police and fire dispatching under one roof. To my knowledge, nobody else has a redundancy built in like Glenview does. Glenview is a leader in dispatching in the state, if not the Midwest or the nation. It's the quality of services that are received. It's an exceptional bargain to the village. But for not that, in the first 7-year term of this agreement, we would have had excess of $1 million, but Highland Park went with a different radio, when they went to a digital platform, and we had to go along, for those of you who were on the board, remember we had to go along early. We did a little bit kicking and screaming because we were trying to wait till the end of this term so that we can brag that we had more than $1 million worth of savings, but because they went, everybody had to go, including Lake Forest, earlier than we wanted to go. But just recently, we talked about how we got that rebate back for our capital through the grant dollars,
Right.
so we made up for that.
That's right.
So it's been a remarkable relationship. Glenview has been a great partner, and all this goes back to the initial question, going back years ago when the village and the city of Highland Park and the city of Highwood and the city of Highland Park engaged into a study regarding fire EMS services of how can we better provide services together in terms of other consolidated activities that we could be doing to produce savings and offer better services. And the primary recommendation that came out of that examination was you all have to be on the same platform for communication and be able to do it together if you even want to consider moving forward with any other shared service opportunities. So this sadly took several years to get to this point, but then we did it, and it's now been 7 years. And so those opportunities, we can continue to analyze other opportunities because we're on the same platform. So.
I know, I just had a concern that Drew and I already spoke about earlier today about, given the current jobs climate and how difficult it is to staff things, that Glenview had adequate staffing for their dispatch. And he said, Drew mentioned that it's never been a problem. So that was the only thing that kind of I was thinking about, was just making sure that there's adequate staff and that everything's running smoothly. So we've never, right, Drew, we've never had an issue, not for all the years we've been doing this.
Nope.
Well, I can say from personal experience that they picked up the phone within seconds.
Sorry.
No, it was interesting. Somebody just was at the wrong 610. So anyway, I just wanted to say that there was a note in here about the call will be picked up within 12 seconds. It was 2. The 911 operator was wonderful. It was kind of a very, very, very unusual situation. And so I want to just give a shout out. We don't get a chance to say this to people very often who we deal with, but we can never see. But I would say the quality is there. And I think for peace of mind for residents, that's important, because as I recall, Drew, when we initially did this, people were sort of like, oh, wait, is that Glenview's so far away, what are we going because that's a good question. What are we losing, right? So the person answering the phone, you have to sometimes say, where, you know, depending on, if it's a non-emergency, where are you? They'll ask you. And that's odd, because in Lake Bluff, we expect the call to go right here and for them to know us, right? But in terms of in a real emergency situation, I would say everybody should have peace of mind, because it was extremely professional, and I felt good about the experience. No one ever wants to have to do it, right? But if you do, you know you're in good hands with these people, because they really are really professional. So I think this is a great thing that we've done, and the savings is great. And the rebate too, was that really, so the rebate, I forgot about, that was really unexpected, was it not?
We did not account for that in our math. We didn't think we would get the money back through the grant program, but they were able to get it because the village and the other cities that we mentioned earlier, that we were one of the early adopters of a consolidated dispatch, and then subsequent to our work, the state mandated if you were serving an area of fewer than 30,000 residents, you had to either consolidate or grow, you know, so to get to that threshold. So we were early, then they started giving people money to consolidate, and since we had already, you know, beaten that law, we were able to actually fortunate to get the money after the fact, so.
Very nice. Thank you for your feedback. This is, batch feedback should be brought back to the
Glenview.
dispatch. Yes, thank you. Anything more on the days? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
We need a motion.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
So I'd
Is-
like to
I
make a motion to
had
approve.
Steve and I had Steve and
Oh, you
keep it
did?
on. Yeah.
Oh,
And I said,
well, I'll make it again.
So, having a motion in hand, hearing no more comments, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Inkman?
Aye.
Trustee Brian?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Markey?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Next is item 15, a resolution authorizing the purchase of 2 Ford police vehicles and the declaration of 2 vehicles from the village fleet as surplus. Is there a motion to approve a resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The village fiscal year 2021 to 2022 budget provides funding for the replacement of 2 police vehicles pursuant to the vehicle and equipment replacement schedule. The police department has evaluated the current fleet in conjunction with the public work department and has determined that 2 vehicles will be requested for purchase this budget year. Currently, the state of Illinois awarded the bid to Morrow Brothers Ford of Greenfield, Illinois, for the Ford Interceptor Utility Explorer police package vehicles. Both vehicles will be marked patrol operations at an estimated base price of $36,385 each. Additional estimated cost, $11,500 per square car, are associated with the upfitting and marking of a patrol unit. See attached quotes. The vehicles will replace the 2016 Ford Taurus, but will transition to the engineering department. The Taurus will replace the 2011 Chevy Tahoe, valued at $4,000, that will be traded in along with the 2016 Chevy Tahoe, valued at $15,000, marked patrol vehicles. Any comment? Any feedback?
I would say it was surprisingly inexpensive for those 2 cars, I thought. But just, are we required to get 3 bids, or?
We can, this is a state purchase where our procurement policies allow us
okay.
to piggyback on that.
Got it.
Any more feedback?
Just want to also clarify, if you noted on the order, it's 24 to 26 week delivery.
Yeah.
So, don't count on seeing them anytime soon.
Out of curiosity, how many do we have total? How many police cars?
Here, I'm gonna let, Mike, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. We have 5 marked cars and 3 unmarked cars.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Drew, are these going to Eagan, Minnesota to go to the graphic shop?
I'm sorry?
So the graphic shop
Oh.
that's gonna put the logos on is in Eagan, Minnesota. I'm just curious, are they gonna take a little trip?
No. Mike, you want to describe how the cars are outfitted? It's a
Yeah.
great question, though.
Actually, they're converted in Green Oaks in the industrial park. There's a vendor there that puts on the graphics and the light bars and the seats and emergency lights and sirens and everything else.
Okay, cool.
Cool. Nice. Thank you, Mike. Anything more? Any questions to Mike? Thank you very much, Chief Hoskin. So hearing no more comments, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Inkeman.
Aye.
Trustee Briand.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Marquis.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is item 16, our trustees' report. Do any trustee wish to make a report this evening?
I do. Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take a minute of time to talk about a community member, Katie Kramer. Katie was a valued member of Lake Bluff. She was a mother, an educator, an avid sailor, and a wonderful parent and wife. And she, unfortunately, we lost her last week to a terrible and very brave fight against cancer. And normally, you know, I wouldn't necessarily take up this time to talk about anybody. This is part of life, but and unfortunately, the past year and a half has been brutal for many community members. But Katie just really was indicative of the Lake Bluff spirit that we all find so precious, and I wanted to honor that. She had just an incredible sunny demeanor, friendly, outgoing. My first memory of meeting her was her sitting under a tree at our children's soccer match, and she invited me, a stranger, to sit on her blanket with her. And I am lucky to say that I've had plenty of fun experiences and joyful interactions with her and her husband, Matt, who the two of them had an exemplary marriage and partnership, and that's very reflective in their incredible children, Charlotte and Ben, who actually are both the same ages as my children. You couldn't find two better examples of Lake Bluff children: kind, sweet, outgoing, athletic, involved in activities, but always inclusive. My kids just love them both. She was an incredible mother. She, even during her battle with cancer, continued her support for the Boy Scouts. She would stream her son's baseball games from the hospital. I had the pleasure of speaking to many people who were in her life and who were close friends with her, and family members who were willing to share these stories with me. She also was an incredible educator. She was 20 years teaching at Wood Oaks Junior High School. And in fact, on the day of her funeral mass last Monday, the school closed, and I think that alone is quite a statement. The school closed. The godmother of her child, of Charlotte, shared with me that a student said of her, a quote from one of her students is, "Mrs. Kramer was so invested in turning us kids into smarter, kinder, more caring humans, and she never let me get away with selling myself short." That says it all. She is deeply missed, but fortunately for all of us who have known her and who have interacted with her, and for her children, her incredible spirit will live on and on. And I hope to continue conversations with friends, family, community members on a way to honor her more permanently in our village. And stay tuned. I'm going to be brainstorming, and if anybody listening in or anybody on this panel has thoughts or would like to share, please put them in touch with me. We have lots of lovely ideas on how to honor her long term. Again, I just want to extend my heartfelt condolences to anybody who is touched and going through the pain of losing Katie, especially Matt, Ben, and Charlotte. And I just want to say, may her memory be a blessing.
is a tough time for her family. My family has gone through the same pain, and we are very lucky to be where we are today as a complete family. And in this ordeal, I can only think about Ben and Charlotte because it's not going to be easy for them. So thank you for speaking up for them.
Katie was my neighbor, and you know that, Tara, and it's very well said. Thank you for saying it.
Any more words? Any more trustee report? Thank you. Moving on with business. Next is item 17, consideration of a September 27, 2021 executive session meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions, discussions, or concerns? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Brian.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Trustee Inkerman.
Aye.
Thank you. Do we have a executive session tonight?
No.
No need.
Thank you. Well, I would entertain a motion to close this meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Voice.
Okay, sorry about that. Anyone, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.